Let's see. Compañeros, welcome to another edition of the SQL Data Partners Podcast. I am Carlos El Chacon, your host, and I am joined today by Kevin Fiesel.
Hello.
And Ameena Lalani.
Hello.
It's nice to have you, Ameena. Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Now, you have an interesting topic to talk with us about today, and ultimately, it is enabling the IaaS agent extension for Azure SQL VMs. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a mouthful. That's probably the
exactly.
Probably smoother.
Yeah, it is.
Call it IaaS.
There we go. IaaS. There we go. Mm-hmm. So we have an IaaS agent extension that we want to talk about today, right? Mm-hmm. And you're going to walk us through that, and so we appreciate that. But first, as we always do, we have a couple of pieces we want to discuss. First, we want to talk about so the show notes for today's episode will be at sqldatapartners.com/IaaS agent, right? Or at sqldatapartners.com/226. Oh, and I'm just noticing I didn't look at my notes beforehand. We actually don't have any shout outs for today, so our intro is going to be super fast. I would be remiss if I didn't say, however, that SQL Trail is happening 1 week from today. So, compañeros, those who are following us live, we invite you to sign up. Head over to sqltrail.com, sign up. We have 3 sessions in store, and we hope that they are compelling to you, as is some of the networking that will be available in the event next week. And you don't even have to decide, right? Live stream podcast or SQL Trail. No, you can
do both.
You can do
SQLtrail.com.
That's easy. Yep. SQLtrail.com.
That's right. And so that then brings us, right? So let's go ahead and jump into our topic, right?
Sure.
So Ameena, right? You've been working with Microsoft, and for a long time I had to chuckle, right? Because it was this whole cloud first, mobile first, right? And we were kind of like, what is going on here? And then obviously the last couple of years, right? We've like, oh, that's what they mean. They've been working on this huge fire hose, and they're just going to continue to release all these cloud features as fast as they can. And so today we want to talk about the IaaS agent extension for Azure SQL VMs. Okay, so we're gonna start very straightforward for all the loving knuckle dragging Neanderthals out there like myself. Take us through what is this agent extension?
So this is are you finding it a mouthful? The name, the agent IaaS agent extension.
For
before
SQL,
it was used
for Azure SQL VMs specifically, right?
Yeah. So it was before it was used to call a resource SQL resource provider. That's what its initial name was.
Okay.
So it's if other people who are familiar with Azure SQL VM and then they have used this SQL resource provider, just the name that's the new name.
Gotcha.
But it has like more functionality added, and as the time goes, we will talk about it. So it provides you the administration capabilities for the self-installed SQL Server VM. So the key word is self-installed SQL Server VM, opposed to the image from the marketplace.
Okay, so if I've picked SQL Server, I'm like, hey, I want it pre-installed, right? Does that mean that this is already baked in there? Yes, it will
already be there.
Gotcha.
It's baked in there. So if you go to the marketplace, you pick up image, right? So image will be like Windows Server 2019, SQL Server 2019. And there are a bunch of images, right? Till you go to Windows Server 2008, SQL Server 2008 R2, something, it goes that far. And you have all the Linux operating system flavor. You have standard edition, developer free edition, enterprise. So it's like a bunch of images that are there for you to pick up. and you
And
will
it's a
get.
tangent for just a moment. You'll forgive me.
Yeah,
But a
yeah, no,
tangent
no,
just for a
sure.
moment. I can't tell you how grateful I am that the marketplace still has SQL Server 2008 because we ran into a SQL 2000 box the other day that I needed to upgrade.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, oh
Yeah,
gosh, what am I going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to use Azure to do that.
yeah.
People, if your SQL Server instance is eligible to vote, you gotta upgrade. All
I
right, they're
know,
bad enough
I
as
know.
teenagers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's a good thing. So it provides the management capability, which is similar to Azure SQL PaaS. So people who don't know what is PaaS and IaaS, let me just briefly describe, right?
Sure.
So infrastructure as a service, IaaS, basically it is the VM in Azure. And if you are installing SQL Server on that VM, then it's Azure SQL VM. And we call it an infrastructure as a service platform, right? And it is just like your on-prem VM, where as a DBA, you install your SQL Server instance and configure all the settings and create jobs for your backups. I mean, whatever you do, you just have to do everything the similar in Azure. It's just there, your VM is there, right?
Sure.
And the PaaS service has two flavors too: Azure SQL Database and Azure SQL Managed Instance. So if you want your single database to migrate to Azure Cloud, you can migrate it to Azure SQL Database. And if you want your SQL Server on-prem instance to migrate to the PaaS, then you will migrate to Azure SQL Managed Instance. So PaaS means platform as a service. That means that you don't worry about the operating system. You don't worry about the underlying hardware. Everything is done for you. Automated backup, automated patching, the encryption, transparent data encryption on by default. And, you have an option to configure uh, uh, your hardware, your disk, extend it on the fly, or decrease it. And the layer of the tiers, you can go up and down. You can do lots of things. It's everything is happening behind the scenes, but as an user, as a SQL Server administrator, it's like automatic for you, right? So, and in Azure SQL VM, you do everything just like you do on-prem. So now, what with this agent extension, what it is doing is bringing it the good of the both world together. So you are getting a PaaS-like capabilities in Azure SQL VM, but the best part is it's no additional cost.
There you go.
It's available to you free.
Sure.
So
So
just
when you
turn.
say, sorry, when you say PaaS-like experience, you mentioned a few things there with platform as a service, you get these things. What do you get really with the IaaS agent extension? If I install that on a VM that I've already got, which PaaS-like pieces are available to me now?
So first of all, from the Azure portal, in the PaaS, you manage your SQL Server from the portal. You can manage from the portal. You can manage from your SQL Server Management Studio or Azure Data Studio. You can manage there. For the VM, you have to remote desktop into it to connect to it. You can connect to Azure SQL VM in the SSMS, but you cannot do any kind of management stuff from there. If you want to increase the disk, if you want to change the addition, from developer to enterprise or all this, you have to go to the VM itself, remote desktop into and do it. And similarly in the portal, you can do whatever you can do in SSMS with SQL VM, you can do same thing in the Azure portal. But for those administrative kind of thing, you have to go to the RDP. But with this agent extension, you can do all these management pieces from the portal, just like the PaaS service. So it's like you don't have to RDP when you want to increase your disks, manage disk. You don't have to RDP to or connect to the management studio to create your jobs, and you don't have to create your jobs. It's just a visit screen. You choose what time you want your full backup, which days, choose your differential backup, which days, how many times, transactional log backup, and you can even define don't run, like my backup window is 2 hours. Do what you can in that. You can go to that granular level. It's just one wizard screen and you are done. Instead of think about on your on-prem, you create a job, right? If you are using Ola Hellengren's script to create backup jobs, you have to configure a few things, and then or you're creating your own jobs, or you're using a maintenance task to create the jobs. But here, it's just one wizard screen and you are done.
Now, so the backups were one thing that I noticed, right, as a feature. But take me through that just a little bit, because there are, right, I feel like there's lots of different ways to back up VMs, right? And so we are not talking about Azure Sync, right? When we talk about this interface, where this is a different, and this is a different type of backup and specific to the databases themselves, right?
So this is not I'm talking not about the Azure VM backup. So that service is available. It is, when you create an Azure VM, it is backed up, or you can say a snapshot. By default, it happens. So this we are talking about specifically SQL Server backups, which are automated with this one. So that was your question, was?
Yeah. I think basically, right. So we're not talking about the Azure recovery service, right? We are talking about a specific, right, to the backups, and and again, it gives you that protection, because I know a lot of folks, right? You take the snapshots, you're like, hey, that's okay for me, but a lot of times we want our data. We need data. Need log backups, right? Things like that. So those snapshots aren't just going to work, in the long term.
So another advantage. So we talk. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
No, please talk about advantages.
We just talked about backup, right? So there are other features that it brings, right? Another one, the big one, is the always-on availability group. So how you set up your always-on availability group? You go in the VM, and then you have your the cluster, base cluster in configuration. You have another replica, and then you create an availability group. You add the databases in there, and then in Azure it is a load balancer, in not the listener, but it's the same functionality is same. So you configure all this to create the availability group, but you do it from the VM. But with this agent extension, if your VM is part of the domain, you can create it from the portal now. So that is the one thing that I have not tested, because my machine and my demos are not part of the domain, so I cannot do that. But I have seen demos and the internal workshops where we get the sandbox. I have done it there, and it's very cool. So that is a huge thing if you can manage your availability group from the portal. Another thing is patching. So with the PaaS services, the best thing is that you get the automated patching, right? So it's like evergreen SQL Server you have. So you can get the similar patching in the VM with this extension, where you can configure the day of the week, time of the day, and what duration you have for this maintenance for automated patching. And it will give you, it will send you an email 1 week before, and I think on the same day or 1 hour, that I don't know, but you get an email also, notification that your patching is going to happen on this day.
So if I get that email and then I realize that, oh no, we've got something really important that's running right now, can I delay that automated patch?
Yeah, you can. When you go there, you can say, delay it for 7 days, delay it for 30 days. Yeah, you can do that. Yep.
Yeah, so one of the management pieces, now we've talked about several other components that obviously that make this question perhaps unnecessary, right? But when I first started peeking in this, I was like, okay, well, when I think of managing my VMs, right? On this program, we've talked about Azure Arc, right? So is there, what's my question? I guess my question is, well, maybe my question is, would I be using both? Is that a thing, or hey, you've installed SQL Server on your own in a VM, you want to be using this agent maybe as the first level?
So installing agent is an option, right? It's not a requirement. It is nobody's forcing you, right? So you have to enable this feature. You enable this feature. You can do it at the VM level in the portal, in the Azure portal, or at the subscription level in the portal. So you enable this feature, right? Also, you can decide. So when you enable at the subscription level, basically you are saying that auto register. So if my existing VMs, all the existing VMs in the subscription will be, this agent will be installed. All the future new instances you are creating, it will be installed, right? But if you are not enabling it on the subscription, but you are enabling it at the VM level, then you are choosing, right? You are choosing to register it. So it's not like this agent, when you install it, is going to go and discover a SQL Server and VMs. It's not like that. So of course, Microsoft will get information about your VM. You are registering it, so there somewhere it will be stored. But what will be stored? It will be stored that what Windows Server is that, what SQL version is that, what edition is that, and the agent is installed or not, and which resource group and which subscription. So it's like a metadata about the instance. You can say nothing inside the SQL Server. Nobody can get inside the SQL Server with that information, because you have to provide an access. So I think this is the most people ask question about the security, that when I'm installing the agent, how risky it is, right? How is Microsoft is going to be intrusive or something, right? We are going to do anything. So the cloud. So when you have a tenant in the cloud, the tenant ID, Microsoft has it, right? And if you have the subscription ID is also there, because that's how, when you open a case, we can troubleshoot, right? So similarly, now we have this VM information and we say that, okay, ABC company has this VM, Windows 19, SQL Server 2019 Enterprise, and this is in this subscription and this resource group. That's all. And the agent is installed or not. And when agent is not installed, then of course you don't have that information.
Sure.
Right. VM information is not there. But if agent is installed, that will be saying, yeah, agent is installed. But why this information is there, agent installed? Because agent install has two flavors: lightweight agent install and the full mode.
Okay.
So we have not talked about all the other features what available. So let me just talk about one more feature that then I will explain the lightweight mode. The licensing. So if you are installing your SQL Server VM and then your own SQL Server, so self-installed, let's say, so the only payment mode is pay as you go. You will not have the Azure hybrid license mode, and you will not have the DR payment mode. So DR payment mode means that you are using this VM for a replica, which should be free. So when you do this, so what happens when in the self-install mode, that you have to send an email or something, to the Microsoft that this is my DR node, and in 10 days, you get the certification or the agreement. Yeah, it is accepted. It is your DR node. So you have that in your hand, right? But with this one, this agent is managing it. So you can select that I want to use my Azure hybrid benefit, that is my on-prem licensing, that I can use that in the Azure. So I don't have to pay for it because I've already paid for my on-prem. Or you are saying that this VM is the DR node. So then I don't have to pay for it. So if you these kind of changes, that's also part of the management, agent management, right? So when it is light mode means that if you are enabling an IaaS agent extension, you don't want to reboot your VM. So that is the lightweight mode, and in the lightweight mode, only feature you get is the license changes, the hybrid mode or the Azure hybrid mode or the pay as you go or the DR. Other features, automated backup, automated patching, availability group, you don't get anything. It needs a reboot. So when you reboot, then it will be full mode.
Gotcha.
So basically, what service account does the agent use when it's doing things like taking backups?
Backups. So whatever the account you created, in the VM we have two options, right? Windows authentication and SQL authentication. So whatever if you're using SQL authentication, it will use that one, or Windows authentication. So it is the agent is not. So agent, when you install the agent, it installs two services on the Windows. So like you install SQL Server, you see the services in the service component of the Windows, right? So when you install this IaaS agent extension, you see two more services in there, and it will say IaaS agent extension. And if you click on those services and go to log on as, there is an account, and it is also called IaaS extension query or something, but there is an account that gets created. And if you go in your SQL Server and look in the security and the login, that account will be there, and that account will have a system administration, SA permission. So if you are asking about the risk or anything, when I said no risk, there is no risk, but this is something that you need to be aware of, that when you install an agent, an account gets created, which gets the admin permission on the SQL Server. And why it is done? Because it is doing our admin level stuff, right? So it needs that permission.
Right.
Yeah.
So
if you have the ability to create a availability group, right? Yeah, I mean,
So if you don't want, if you disable that login, so the administration feature, you will not be able to do it.
Sure.
So if you have right, so that it's not a risk, it's just something to be aware of, right? If DBAs go and see, we don't recognize this, and they just delete this account, right? So just to be aware of that, why it has as a. And another thing, another advantage of IaaS extension is the automated transparent data encryption, column level encryption. The key management portion is for the PaaS service, it is all managed by the Microsoft behind the scene, and it is using Azure Key Vault. Microsoft PaaS service is using Azure Key Vault behind the scene. It's just not exposed to the client, and a client can also bring their own keys. In the PaaS also is allowed. So same thing, in the VM, before IaaS extension, only option was client bring their own keys. You bring your own keys and then do. With PaaS, you can have the built-in, you can use Microsoft managed keys also for transparent data encryption. And what is the benefit of using Microsoft? That you don't have to worry about rotation or anything. They do, I think it's 6 months. I forgot. I will not quote, but they do the rotation, periodically of the key. So you're transparent. But if you want your key, many customers, they would want their for production, at least for production databases, they would want their managed key, because what if they want to restore this backup in another environment, then they would need that key.
Yeah. Now, if I am using the Microsoft generated keys, because I'm fine with that, but I do need to restore that database to a different subscription. Is there a way to get to the current key, or would I just export it from SQL Server?
Different subscription, that I don't know, but within that subscription you can restore it. I actually don't know the answer to this
Okay.
question. A little bit goes towards the security of the backup. But yeah, I don't know that you can restore it in different subscription.
Yeah. So,
All right, but if you were going to go into the same
Next.
subscription,
Mhm.
let's say that for some reason I wanted to get the current key that's being used for transparent data encryption, and I didn't bring it myself, so I'm just using whatever was generated automatically. Is there any way for me to get to that, or is it completely hidden
No,
behind the scenes?
yeah, it's hidden behind the scene. But I have seen if there are like certain, like uh, real cases where customer needs, it's like a business case. There is a strong business case that they needed. So they open a case and then the team helps them to get it. But that's a long process. It's not easily available. Yeah.
Okay, so basically contact support if I'm in a
Yeah.
situation where I would need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So one of the things
while this thing is running, what kind of resource hit does it take? I mean, it's a service that's executing things, and obviously it's got to be doing something to keep alive. So is there some heavy impact on a server, or should I be concerned if my SQL Server instance is already pretty burdened?
Yeah.
So no. So that's why we have two modes, right? The lightweight mode and the full mode. So lightweight mode means you are so those services that we talked about that get installed, they don't get enabled. Those services, they get installed, but they don't get enabled. So that means no impact, because you can only do the licensing change, right? That's the only you do in the lightweight mode. So once it reboots, those services get enabled, and it using some memory and some CPU, but nothing to burden. Whatever, the Windows is like a Windows service, how much it needs to just be alive, it's just that.
It's not a problem till it's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, if you know that there are services, right, and it's using that account. So if you're aware of these pieces, then you're like to go there and to troubleshoot, right? So you can look at it, if this service is causing the problem, if this is the memory hogging, you can find out that.
Yeah.
But no, it's not doing anything unless when you are doing something, you are changing the disk size. Suppose you are extending the disk, then of course something is going on the server, and you will see this account is doing it. So
sure.
Yeah.
So Kevin, I was thinking, she's described this, and at least at first, maybe it's different in the Amazon world, but a lot of people were dipping their toes in the cloud by lift and shift, right, VMs, and so I can imagine that Microsoft all of a sudden had all these VMs that they had to then deal with, and it feels like they're trying to give them away or give them some opportunities to, continue to leverage some cloud features.
You put it nicely. Exactly. That's the reason, and we are giving it for free because, we saw the people paying, and we saw that, I mean, we could have made money because people would have bought it, right, for the VMs, because some people they cannot change their application as fast, and then still they want to migrating SQL piece is easier for them, and then migrating the application piece. So they choose to go to VM instead of, so we wanted to give this to them. I already talked about what information we get, right, when you register. It's not much, right? It's just that you're getting that this Windows is installed, this SQL Server is installed, and agent is installed or not, right? So it's not that much information, but what you are getting is much more flexibility. And yes, we heard the pain, and we wanted to ease the pain. And yes, it will help Microsoft get more people migrate quickly to Azure who are not ready application-wise, but with this functionality, it's more. There's more reason, why they want to move to the Azure SQL VM.
Yeah. I mean, I can. Yeah, I can see that particularly, right. So you can give SQL Server functionality to folks that, I mean, I'll say maybe are not as comfortable in Management Studio. That sounds like one of them. But the other piece I think is on the upgrades, right? So the licensing piece. Now, Ameena, I'm sure you have nothing to do with it, but you can and I should say as I drink my Microsoft Kool-Aid, right?
Okay.
But you can also see if you weren't drinking that Kool-Aid, you're like, hey, it's just a money grab, right? You want to know what my licenses and all my stuff. However, I think as you go through software assurance, you have the enterprise agreements. This then makes it a lot easier to bring all that stuff together, and when you're ready to actually migrate, but you need to stay on the same VM for whatever reason, right? You have that. I think that that process will be smoother.
And that you're right. And for the company, the benefit is that they can see in one pane the inventory of their all VMs. Their every VMs, and they can see everything in one VM without. And if the agent is not installed, that will not be in their inventory page. So they have to keep track of it somehow separately, right? And if you have like hundreds or thousands of VMs, then you want to automate something, you need to have everything in one pane, and then you see agent is installed, but it is in light mode, so that means this VM was not rebooted, so you can see everything was in the same pane. And then you can also see in which subscription each ones are, which resource group each one is. So I think it's a very good inventory information for the company as well. And you get to true up, right? So I mean, it is available. It is now registered. That means that you cannot hide, right? Of course, that's the mean. So it's like a true up thing. But people who have software assurance on-prem, they don't have to worry about anything anyways, right? Because they get
I think those are the ones who are especially worried. No, I'm just kidding.
No, they will not have to worry about anything because you're getting between software assurance, and if you reserve your capacity for 3 years, you're getting 85% discount. Then if somebody is coming to Azure SQL VM, buying it pay as you go, compared to that, if you're coming from software assurance and you reserve that VM for 3 years, then you get 85% discount. So if you consider that, then we are the cheapest compared to Amazon Cloud, because Amazon Cloud is leading, right?
Sure.
And Google Cloud is very much behind us. We are close to Amazon, but Amazon is leading. But so I just wanted to give you that picture that where the Microsoft is in the cloud business.
Yeah, and it's fair. I think in looking at infrastructure and managing that infrastructure, you want to take advantages of of the cloud piece. Why not give yourself as much detail as you can? I think there are benefits there, and the planning pieces, right? I mean, you just mentioned if you've made this commitment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there could be a budget consideration, but an 85% discount, right?
Mm-hmm.
We would want to try and see what you could prepay there, because I think there are definitely some benefits, and again, a little bit of planning, right? What's the phrase? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so I don't know how you equate that to the planning piece of this, but a little bit of planning can go a long ways in your experience.
Yeah, so planning is, I think planning is always the most important part of any project. I think that if you do the planning way, I think half your battles are won. So so your question is like planning to install this agent? That's your question is?
No, I guess I'm making more of a comment, right? In terms of why you would go that route.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Kevin. So I guess we're looking at the downsides, right? So we mentioned the service, right? Okay, now Microsoft's going to know a little bit more in terms of what your subscription, looks like. Are there any other reasons or considerations that you might have as to when or why to install the agent?
Notice that Carlos comes to me for the downsides. Kevin, can you give us the gloomy version of this? Yes, I can. It's what I do here.
So this is the one agent which doesn't have any cons here. The only thing that you have to be aware about, that account that gets created with SA account, and then just know that your server is registered. So it's registered, but you're getting all the benefits up there. There is no gotcha. So suppose there is one particular DBA who does not like to leave the control of their backup. So they said, oh, we don't want this. Automated backup is running, but we still want to do my own backup. You can do it. But then again, you are, and you can disable that backup, automated backup also. You can disable that if you don't want the automated backup, because you don't want to run both of them, because it will break the log chain, right?
Sure.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
so you can do that. Still, you can have that. It's not like if you do the agent, you have to use those features. So same thing. The TDE key, you can use Microsoft key, but you don't have to. You can bring your own key also for management. It's just this: if you want to get away from managing lots of VMs, we are making it easier for you, and it's safe and secure. It's performant. Whatever as a DBA we do for best practices, we already do that for the PaaS service. So we are doing that for you. So you don't have to worry about the automated patching, because you have already identified the window. So you're getting a lot, but then you're then losing some control. So some DBAs I know I have worked with, they don't want to lose control. So they don't want to install this management, maybe just in the lightweight mode, if they want to register it. But yeah.
But now, and I know, Kevin, you want to jump in and defend your the good side. But in terms of that lightweight, right? So you mentioned, hey, you install it, you get the lightweight mode, and you have to reboot it. Once I install it and reboot, the machine's going to reboot at some point when I patch. Doesn't that automatically turn into the full mode?
It will, and then you can go back and turn it back to the full mode.
Light mode.
You can change it back to the light mode.
Okay.
But that will require again another reboot. So going from up to down will require another reboot.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that services needs to turn off, right? So.
Right.
But you can do it. Yeah.
The one question I've got on the automated backups, I don't know if you'll have the answer to, but can I control things like buffer count, max transfer size, number of files to write?
I don't think so, because I have not. There is a pain, and no, you cannot go that granular.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think behind the scene, whatever we suggest, suppose you are on-prem and you open a case, my backup performance, and we suggest, split the files and whatever we are suggesting, change the those parameters for the backups. Behind the scene, PaaS does that automatically. It's not, so we don't know. So if there is a huge backup, it will split into multiple files to do it. So we will not be able to, but if you open a case, if we want to see the telemetry data, it will not be easier, but you can get it. And you can see if you have a problem, right? Your backup performance is not performing, and if you want to look into it, and you are on the PaaS, you are not in VM. Suppose you are using your managed instance, then they will be able to show you, give you the report of your backup performance for troubleshooting purposes. Yeah.
One other question that I have is more of a hypothetical. And that is, let's suppose that I'm thinking about taking an on-premises SQL Server instance, and I could go either Azure SQL Managed Instance or a VM with the IaaS extension. And suppose that I could actually go into managed instances. I don't have anything like file stream, which would be a limitation. with both of those options on the table, is there one that you would generally recommend without knowing a lot of information about the specifics of my scenario? Like if I were to just ask you, pick one of the two, is there one that you would lean toward?
I would say go managed instance. It's much easier migration, but then I would ask a second question about the size, because managed instance have a size, database size is limitation, right?
Sure.
8 terabyte. So if your database is bigger than that, then you either have to pick hyperscale or the VM. VM has no
Right.
limitation, right? So that question I will ask another one. But other than that, if everything is under 8 terabyte, I would prefer to go to a managed instance, because that is like however you are managing your instance. Like I would say 90% is exactly same. Why I'm not saying 100%? Because there may be some types of jobs, right? SQL agent is there, but some types of jobs will not be available because see, suppose you are running CMD shell or something,
Yep.
because you don't have operating system access on the managed instance, so that type of job will not run. So that's why I'm saying 90%, but it maybe 95%. It's just exactly same as the on-prem instance.
Okay, so basically the hierarchy would be managed instances if I can get it, Azure VM with the IaaS agent extension if not, without it, and then like Amazon.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, okay.
Thank you for taking your hand off the screen when you said that last one, right?
I'd like to think that it'll still play well in podcast form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think again, right? So the ease of the lift and shift, right, is how a lot of people kind of got in there, right? Once you I don't know, I don't want to say get serious, but that's for lack of a better phrase, right? Get serious about, leveraging Azure services, right? The managed service, I think, can make more sense, but you have to, it does require testing and setting up. You have to change your application, all that other jazz. And so. And
some people, they if suppose, they have to migrate to Azure, some push from the company, their business is coming up. And every all services, all SQL servers are okay to migrate to managed instance. One or two are using file stream, so they can go to a VM, and then from there they figure out how they will work with that file stream data, and then they can migrate to the managed instance from Azure SQL VM to MI. So that is also, some companies take the path like that.
Right.
Always more than one way to get there.
Yeah, and there are a lot of ways to do things in Azure,
Yeah,
sometimes, right. Yeah. And then with the Azure Data Studio, also, that there have more, because it's every time, I open it, asked to refreshes, because there is some update, there is some feature. So last time I saw Azure Migration Assistant added in there. So every time, new feature in the Azure Data Studio is added in there. So interesting time we are living in.
Yep.
Indeed.
Although on file stream, I will say I'm probably the only person on the planet who loves file table. And if you also love file table, at Carlos on Twitter, because he's on Twitter.
Yeah. Yes, I was gonna say. Okay, so Adam Mechanic actually that came up in a feature, and he was like, "I'm trying to figure out why they added the file table structure." So.
I like it. It's worked well for very specific scenarios that I've had.
Okay, there you go. Well, so
my previous company had the file stream, and for the longest time, they would, so I was pushing for the availability group. We were migrating from 2012 to 2016, and I said, we should have availability group. But in the testing, that file stream was a problem. So I said, this is how it works. You have to enable it there. You have to disable it there. That's the manual part that you have to do.
Sure.
That's So once the developers did 2-3 times, then we were okay with it. So it's just getting used to it, I think, to get the comfort level of any technology. That's why I was giving this example. And I would give a shout out to Adam Mechanic, since we mentioned him, because today I was with one of the client, and I and they're senior DBAs. And I said, did you use SP who is active? Uh, yeah, we have it, but they never knew that it tells you what percentage of backup or restore is completed, or what percentage, So I said, yeah, it is going to tell you.
That's
And
the
they were
only
so
thing it will
surprised.
tell you when it's
They
about
were like
that.
dancing. I said,
Yep.
yeah, so I said, this guy, Adam Mechanic, he gave it to the community like 10 years ago, this tool, and it's very useful.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Every single day.
Yeah.
I've got it actually mapped to 3 separate keyboard commands based on different forms, because you've got Control 1 for just the basic, Control 3 for me, Control 4 for more. So Control 3 is all of my sessions. Control 4 is including execution plans and a bunch of other details.
Oh, okay.
There you
That's
go.
interesting. Yep. That's interesting. Yep.
Okay, so Ameena, last thoughts on the IaaS agent extension for Azure SQL VMs.
So let me see, like some people, I have written a list of questions that I get most of the time when I do this session at user group or SQL Saturday. So I get the question that, can I register with SQL VM IaaS agent extension without specifying the SQL Server license type? So you cannot do that. The SQL Server license type is not an optional property when you are registering. So it needs to know the license type, right? Whether it's a pay-as-you-go, Azure Hybrid Benefit, or the DR mode. Can I downgrade the SQL Server IaaS extension from full mode to lightweight mode? So it says no, downgrading is not possible. But the manageability mode from full, you can unregister the SQL VM. So I was wrong in my answer. I'm glad I wrote it down.
Oh, there we go.
So if you want to go from full to lightweight, you have to unregister it.
Gotcha.
So you cannot downgrade it. You have to unregister the IaaS agent and install it again with the lightweight mode.
Very good.
Sorry, so I'm glad I got this. So another question was, can I register my VM with SQL IaaS agent if always on availability group? Yes. There is no restriction. There is no exception. Yeah, you can do that. What is the cost of registering with SQL IaaS extension? It's free. There is no cost associated with that. Performance impact, I told you about that. There was a question always comes about that if it's lightweight mode, no performance impact. Full mode, just barely enough to keep the services alive, on the CPU and the memory for those 2 services. That's it. That's all questions I got. Yeah.
There we go.
We could have just had Ameena just go straight through the questions. We don't even have to.
No, I had to list my 5 questions. It's like in a hidden slide in my my demo deck. I always keep there.
Well, but these consolation, yeah. we did get most of those, Kevin, right? We did pretty good.
You did. Yeah, you covered it.
You got at least a solid C on that test.
At least a solid C. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So should we do SQL Family?
Let's do it.
So, Ameena, how did you first? Now, we didn't do justice in your intro, right? But you have done, you're working as a customer engineer for Microsoft, right? Lots and lots of availability groups and disaster recovery scenarios for you, right? But when did you first start working with SQL Server?
I started with SQL Server 2000, and it was you can call it an accidental DBA. Because in year 2002, I passed the MCSC on Windows 2000. So I was hired by the company as a system administrator. And then, and there was only lone DBA, and when he has to go on vacation, so he would teach me to take backup. I think most of the accidental DBA. And then, he was older guy, and then he retired in like 2 years. I was there. And then they were looking for another DBA. And then in the meantime, the CTO, I think it was, Ameena takes care of at least backups, Yeah, and then this logins, then give this permissions, and then they
Right.
said you take take it. So
Oh,
so
hey, can you get that IaaS extension enabled there for us, Ameena?
I became the DBA in 2004. And then my next job, I went there and then did the first migration from 2000 to 2005. And 2005 was a
Oh, yeah.
big change, big release, right?
Oh, yeah.
Management
Very
Studio
much
and
so.
yeah, very big release. So yeah, then I never looked back. It's such an interesting field.
Sure.
And then I found the SQL community in 2006. And since then I'm part of the SQL Server user group in Chicago. Now I'm running it
Oh, yes.
last 3 years. Yeah.
There we go. Make sure you say hello to Aaron Hayes next
Yes,
time
I
you
will.
see him. Okay, so what's a piece of advice you would give to somebody wanting to pursue a career similar to yours?
So I would say that learning is come with the mindset that it's a lifelong learning. Learning is a lifelong process. So make it fun. And one way to make it fun is by sharing it. So by user group, or just like we are talking right now. So keep it fun, right? Keep it because you have to learn, and nobody can say that I know everything in my field, right? So I like
Maybe
one
Kevin,
question you asked
but-
me. I said, I don't know about another subscription you can restore. So there will be many scenarios, and so don't be afraid of saying that I don't know if you don't know something, but you say I will research and find out, and then research and find out and go back. But I would say, just come with the learning student mindset, growth mindset. Don't come with the mindset that I know everything, or I like a lifetime student kind of thing.
Sure. What's one thing that can instantly make your day better?
I have to say it's my beloved cat, Sebastian. He is such a patience person. He teaches me how to be patient. He waits and waits for me to play with him, and his playfulness, so he makes my life better.
Very cool.
What breed is he?
I don't know. We got it from the shelter. Actually, my daughter got it, and when she moved out, she left it with me, and I graciously took it.
Hey, wait a
because
second. You forgot something here.
Yeah, she got it without asking me permission, because I was not an animal person. Coming from the Pakistan, we never touched animal. We never go close to. I would actually scream when either dog or cat come too close to me. And when she brought me, it was such a shock to me and my husband. But over time, I mean, both of us. My husband loves him. He just it's just a blessing.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
So you've got $10,000. What computer or technology would you purchase?
By the way, that check is in the mail.
Yeah, send me the check, because I will put it toward buying the electric car, because that also counts, I think, towards the tech.
Okay, there we go. Yeah,
I know.
so
I will not get it in.
I was gonna say
10,000,
maybe
but
down
it will
payment
have-
money, right?
Yeah, down payment money. Yeah.
All right, what model?
Ooh.
I don't know. I would look for the Tesla, or any other competitive one, same one. I don't know the model, but I think I will keep my existing car for 5 more years, and by that time, I think most of the cars will be electric anyways. What do you think? In next 5 years, most of the cars will be electric, right? Prices will go down also, and
Well, let's see. When did California outlaw? Isn't it? Is it 2030?
next year, I think.
No, I think it's a little bit longer than that.
Oh, okay.
So
I
there's
was-
some-
It's later than that. It's clocking closer to 2030 by my recollection.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So 2030, you can't sell a gas car in California. So once that happens, I think it will speed up the process. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I will buy by 2025. So
There
if
we
I'm
go.
alive.
There we go.
Yeah.
What famous person in history would you want to spend the day with?
I would spend the time with Rosa Parks,
Okay.
the pioneer women, that for the civil rights movements. And there are many other people, but I just get inspired by her story, standing up, being a woman, standing up at that time, for what she felt right. So
Sure.
so that inspires me, that you should stand up for what you feels right to you. Yeah.
Our last question for you today, Ameena. What's your favorite ice cream topping?
If I tell you are going to provide the ice cream, send me the ice cream.
Yes, here we go. Let
Also
me,
in the mail.
yeah,
Also in the mail. Yeah.
freeze dried, the freeze dried kind.
Yeah.
You know.
So it's a butter pecan with caramel topping.
There we go. Yes, very nice. Awesome.
What are your favorite ice cream? At least I should know that.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, yeah, since we're getting a sequel family here. So my favorite ice cream topping, oosh. So I like hot fudge, but I don't do that often. So it's probably going to have to be like Oreo cookies or something. Probably like Oreo crumbles. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. What about you, Kevin?
It's been long enough since I've put anything on top of ice cream or even had ice cream. I don't know.
Oh, I eat ice cream every day, like half a cup.
There we go. So say the weather's changing, right? Turn that air conditioning off,
Yeah.
hey, Kevin, and go get you some ice cream.
Yeah, only I bought a special cup which only can contain half a cup ice cream, small one. But otherwise, it's it's going to be very tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise it becomes the big bowl. I just had one bowl of ice cream. I mean, it was that big. but-
Yeah.
The half gallon.
And it
size.
satisfies me because I know that tomorrow also I'm going to get it, so I don't have to eat more today. but I eat it every day.
There we
Anytime I
go.
tell anybody, they said, eat ice cream every day. I said, but half a cup, half of it is milk.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me, so for some reason. So, anyway. Okay, well, very good. Well, Ameena, thank you so much for being on the program. If people want to reach out to you, how can they connect with you?
Oh, at SQL Hands. At SQL Hands. Twitter.
Okay, there we go. And Mr. Fiesel?
So if you go into the Azure backup settings, you can open up the stored procedure, and the fifth line of comments, you're going to take the second letter of each word in the comment, and that will give you my Instagram handle.
Okay, we'll pass. We'll find you some other way.
Yeah, I mean, it's like tempting, but that's not going to be my first option. And compañeros, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Just let me know that you've come via the podcast. I enjoy connecting with folks and chatting with them. And we appreciate Ameena taking some time explaining this to us and the agent.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate that. Yeah. Thanks for having me and giving me a chance to, share my knowledge, whatever I knew. But it was a fun time, talking with you, both of you.
Yeah, great. Compañeros, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the SQL Trail.
All right. Okay. Bye-bye.
SQL Data Partners.